So we have a presentation which is made jointly by postdoc Silviya Korpilo and PhD researcher Robert Klein on our current, in a way, flagship project in its size, GREENTRAVEL, which is an ERC project of ours. So Silviya will start and tell about understanding healthy and pleasant everyday travel in that project.
Thank you, Tuuli. Can you hear me well? Yeah, great. My name is Silviya Korpilo. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the Digital Geography Lab, and together with my colleague Robert Klein, who is a PhD researcher at the Digital Geography Lab, we're gonna briefly, after Elias, I think we have to learn. We're gonna briefly discuss how we understand healthy and pleasant everyday travel through our work in the GREENTRAVEL project. So first, generally speaking, we know that nature is good for us, but we have really a lot of scientific evidence about it. But still, we lack comprehensive understanding of how this actually happens. What are the underlying mechanisms of this to happen? What type and how much of, let's say, green spaces and blue spaces we need for health and well-being benefits to occur? So this becomes even more complex in the context of active mobility. And the reason for it is that generally nature-health interactions are understood from a residential perspective or recreational use perspective. And in the context of moving through space as part of everyday travel, actually contact with nature is very unique. It's rather unconscious. It involves a lot of fast-changing environmental stimuli. So it makes this aim to measure it really difficult. And in GREENTRAVEL project, we aim to understand the perception and health and well-being benefits of greenery during active travel. And we really aim to advance transdisciplinary research that integrates urban planning and transportation, green space exposure, public health, and environmental psychology. We really try to use multiple exposure measures with attention to spatial and temporal dynamics. So, for example, we pay particular attention to seasonality and daytime variations. And we also integrate objective and subjective assessments, green space assessments. And the reason for it is that we know from previous study that how we measure objectively green space may differ from how actually people feel and experience nature while they're really in it, while they travel during everyday mobility. So to answer these questions in the GREENTRAVEL project, we use a variety of different methods. This project is also a little bit of the expansion of the traditional use of big data in Digital Geography Lab. We use a lot of participatory and active sensing methods. So, for example, we had this large public participation GIS surveys in 5 European cities: Helsinki metropolitan area, Copenhagen, London, Munich, and Las Palmas, through which we captured the experience and perception of perceived environmental exposure during everyday mobility. We gathered data from almost 5,000 respondents. For anyone who is familiar with participatory mapping, this is a significant number. These respondents mapped more than 8,000 pleasant and unpleasant places along their daily travel routes. And we use this data to understand relations with multisensory aspects of the environment, with green and blue space availability, and with different social demographic variables. And this paper is now under review, so hopefully we will share the results with you already. But in the spirit of open access to the Digital Geography Lab, the dataset, the PPGIS dataset, is already publicly available in Zenodo. We do very exciting work as well through our virtual reality cycling experiments. We actually have randomized controlled trials to using different kinds of devices to measure psychophysiological effects. So we have, for example, devices to measure electrodermal activity, eye tracking and facial expressions, different questionnaires with psychometric scales, to be able to understand the effects of different travel environments on stress reduction and well-being of people while they're on the move. I'm not going to give more spoilers. We're actually not trying to reveal much of it because our experiments are to run now. In 1 week, we will start across the spring to have this at our lab, and we have more than 180 participants already registered, so we're very excited to start this research. Finally, for next year, we have plans for more experimental studies. We're going to do experimental in-situ experiments in the Helsinki region, through which we're trying to answer the same questions, but with people in their real environments. We use different kinds of wearable devices, so biosensors to measure, again, heart rate variability and electrodermal activity. We have sensors that we can put on the bike to measure different environmental exposures. And we are also very excited to start this work. This is something to follow for the future. Thank you so much, and I'll give now the word to Robert.
Thank you, Silvia. And indeed, I'm Robert Klein, a PhD researcher in the Green Travel project. And I'm going to lead you a bit through more the passively sensed data that we try to use to understand the everyday travel environments of people. And we start with satellite imagery. Satellite imagery has the huge strength that it's openly available for basically the whole globe, and also that it reveals temporal differences. And from satellite imagery, we can calculate vegetation indices such as the NDVI, which is most commonly used perhaps. And yeah, with using the NDVI, we can detect and then also quantify the seasonal differences, how the vegetation in different places throughout Europe, we did in this study, but theoretically throughout all the world, how it changes in different places to different extents throughout the seasons. Yes, and the other strength of NDVIs, or of satellite imagery, is that it is so hugely available over the whole globe, so that it's really feasible to do some spatially very extensive studies. For example, in a paper that I've been leading, we've collected the NDVI for 5 years, every month, in 86 cities throughout Europe, and then you can compare kind of what are the differences within the city, but also in between the cities. How does the residential greenery differ from the greenery that is present in the travel environments? Another source of data that you can use to understand everyday travel environments is street-level imagery and computer vision, which has, of course, the strength that it really represents the human perspective, so where the people are, what the people see in the street. And the development there is quite rapid in the present or in the past few years. And for example, you see a colleague of mine has been trying to really stay on top of that and also compare how does it differ, what's the different results when we use data sets and different segmentation algorithms based on different training data sets. And it turns out that there is a difference, so people need to be careful when analyzing street-level imagery, what kind of data sets, what kind of training data sets they use, and what kind of algorithms. But yeah, as I say, the development is rapid, but of course this is a huge potential data source to examine and detect the travel environments of people. So now we have collected all these nice data sets, both that Silvia presented and that I presented, to examine the travel environments. Now we need to know where are people actually moving about in the city, and especially focusing on active travel, since this is where people get exposed to their environment. One example of this would be openly available origin-destination bike-sharing trips. For example, in Helsinki, those are openly available. So there's millions and millions of trips available that enable us to detect where people are moving about in the city, or in this case, especially cycling in the city. And in our group, we developed for years now the tool GreenPath that has been now released, the second version. Roope, Heinonen, and others have been making huge contributions. And that allows us to see the routes that people, it allows us to route based on different kind of factors. So you can route based on time, what is the shortest route, and you can route based on exposure, what other routes are available, what is the green routes that are available, what routes like that present the people with clean air, what about the noise. So you can route based on all of these different exposures, and the strength of the second version is that it is now quite fully customizable, I would say. So you can basically select what kind of exposure do you want to route on. You can weigh different exposures against each other, and also it is now applicable throughout basically everywhere in the world, which makes it a huge advancement from the first version of the tool. And this is just a quick visualization. If I wanted to take the city bike from a bike station close to where I live to any other city bike station, and if I route based on the time, so if it shows me only the shortest routes, then you see that like routes to Espoo would be rather green, whereas routes to the city center in Helsinki would be less green than that. And if I change the routing to based on greenery, then of course the routes change a lot, because now the tool kind of wants to detect what are the greenest routes that are available, and the routes are much greener and they look different. But this is just to visualize a bit like what is going on in the GreenPath tool and what are the ways to use it. And with this tool, of course, and with the bike sharing data that we have, we can then kind of see, first of all, where are the people moving, and we can see how are these routes exposing people on like an urban scale to their travel environments, to different exposures on the travel environments, maybe greenery, maybe air quality, perhaps noise. And yeah, these are the strength of the GreenPath tool, and this is what we plan to further develop in the future, and then further analyze not only in Helsinki but also in other cities in Europe. And with this, I want to conclude with a picture of the GreenTravel team in our retreat in Nuuksio, and open the floor for questions, if there are any, also to Silviya.